Welcome back to another episode of NextGenDDS. This is Mario Santiago, one of your co-hosts. I have my other co-host with me, Dr. Scott Menaker. Scott, thanks for joining us again.
Hey, absolutely. This is always fun. And we're going to talk a little bit of money today.
Yeah.
Talking about what you're going to do with that money and the importance of having a really good financial advisor. We've talked about your team. We've talked so far about from transition advisory to business and tax planning to CPA. The next one that we're going to get to today is really about your financial advisor. And are you listening to the Motley Fool and investing in their stock recommendations for the week, or are you talking to somebody who really understands your whole financial situation and where you're at and what you're doing?
Yeah.
It was interesting. My father was never went to college, kind of hustled hard and eventually kind of made it as a traveling salesman selling women's shoes and was incredibly gifted and good at it. But he had a real knack for numbers and financial stuff. And he kind of figured it out. And he taught me many, many years ago. He said to me, he goes, there's two kinds of debt. He goes, there's good debt and bad debt.
Mm-hmm.
The bad debt's the stuff that you have no idea if and when you're going to ever pay it off. And the good debt is the one that says, I have a plan to go pay it out. And so I remember when I bought my first practice, he kind of said those words to me as I borrowed money from the bank. At the time, banks were only lending about 80% on a practice. So I had to borrow another 20% from my dad. Or some other source. Fortunately, my father was willing to give me a pretty good little interest rate. I paid him back, but he said to me, he goes, this is the good debt. This is the one where you're going to go pay it back. And so going into debt is good at times.
Yeah.
A lot of people have a lot of bad debt out there. It's the reason we've gotten into so many messes with credit card issues and the housing market and who only knows what's coming next, but there's going to be one.
Yeah.
But having a good financial advisor is crucially important to you and what you're doing. So, as you guys talk, Mario, through your role, I'll share some stories from mine.
Yeah.
But, as you're giving clients and people advice, especially young people, your friends, what kind of guidance and advice are you suggesting to them as they're looking for a good financial advisor? And what are the skill sets or what are the things they should be looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. And similar as to we've said before, there's good financial advisors and there's bad financial advisors, just like CPAs, just like dentists, just like anything
lawyers,
else.
You name it. That's right.
So they are not all made the same. A couple things to look out for. I'll start with one just right off the bat. Are they selling you insurance products? For me, that's a bad sign. If you're hiring a financial advisor who's just throwing insurance products at you, they are making a big fat commission off you.
No, I'm just kidding.
And maybe we should do another session at some point about insurances. That might be a good one, Scott. But basically, you want to keep insurance on one side and investments on another side. So that's,
it used to be, that was the, hey, we're going to sell you, and we're not going to get into the specifics, but it was, I'm going to sell you an annuity, and these are the greatest things in the world, and everybody was buying annuities, and then, or they were putting all of their money into whole life insurance.
Correct.
And using that as the investment vehicle. Mm-hmm. And, and there's lots of reasons, and again, you want to have a good financial advisor and a good CPA and a tax planning group that's saying to you, here's the places you want to go put your money, and putting it in insurance, we just feel is not, it's not the most cost effective and certainly the most profitable way to go do your investment.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a good place to start too, Scott, because in my opinion, those insurance products aren't for the benefit of the doctor and the family. They're really for the benefit of the person selling it because they're getting paid, right? So one of the big questions I would ask if I'm looking for a financial advisor is, how do you get paid? Hopefully they just charge, a percentage of assets under management. That would be pretty common.
And is that what they call a fiduciary?
Yes.
Is that the big one that you see on TV
Yes.
a lot?
Are they a fiduciary? That's an important question to ask. Basically, are they recommending things to you for your benefit? You just want to make sure they're not getting paid to sell you certain products. They're not getting paid to put you in certain funds, because that's where the advice starts getting a little muddled where, are you actually giving me this advice because it's best for me? Or are you giving me this advice because you're going to make more money off it? So I think that's one of the most important things to ask.
And I'll duly note that's a big change from the way that it used to be.
Yeah.
Because it used to be the entire world market was set up.
Yeah.
That you had to sell a product and you got compensated by the company when you put them into a product.
Yes.
That obviously changed. I remember many years ago,
Yeah.
the guy that was handling a lot of my 401k and my personal expenses many years ago said, "Hey, do you want to go to New York?" He goes, "I've got two other couples going. My wife and I, the 8 of us, were going to New York. We're going to go. We're gonna go get a tour of. We're going to get on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, and we're going to have somebody's going to foot the bill for our hotel rooms and our dinners."
Sounds nice.
And I was like, "Yeah," but you realize I was already paying for that stuff.
Yeah.
They were just finally, after years, rewarding me for being in their funds for so long.
Yeah.
But again, all of that went away. I mean,
but that has changed a lot. Money management has changed.
That all kind of, maybe not all of it, but most of it has gone away. And that's where you now pay you're paying an advisor to give you good sound advice based on what you need, and they're not making money on whether it's an international fund, a local fund, a bond fund, a real estate trust. There's all kinds of different avenues.
And that leads me that's a good segue to my second point, Scott, is the investment world and the way money is managed has changed with time. It used to be back in the day, a lot of money managers, who has the best rate of return, who's picking the best stocks. And what we found out with data over the past many decades is that stock picking doesn't actually work. So
it works every once in a while.
Yeah. So
but a lot of times, 8 out of 10 it doesn't work, and you hope the 2 that you hit on.
Yep. It's just legalized gambling.
That's exactly
Scott.
what it is.
It's just
That's exactly
adult
what it
gambling. So I actually met with a doctor the other day, and I'm telling them, look, you can't stop stock pick, and they're like, yeah, you can. You just have to make sure you know when to get in and when to get out. And there's even more data about that, Scott. There's more data that shows that timing the market doesn't work. So people think they know, hey, we're at the peak, we're gonna pull out. Oh, we're at the bottom, we're gonna buy. It's really hard to know when you're at the peak and when you're at the bottom.
We saw that at the beginning of this year when the president started announcing all the tariffs. What happened to the market? Mm-hmm. It tanked. Mm-hmm. And what and then almost turn your head around to the next week, or all of a sudden it goes back up. And so timing that is
it's tough. And by the time
it's impossible,
by the time you find out about this stuff, it's too late. The stock market has so much data that by the time you find out that the market tanked or the market's up, it's too late, right? It's like people come in and they say they want to buy Tesla or Facebook because it's so hot. Well, you really wanted to buy it before it became hot, right? And it's really hard to know when that's going to happen. So what you really need in an advisor is someone who's not doing the legalized gambling and picking all these stocks and trying to pick the winners and trying to pick the losers. That also causes a lot of movement and costs within portfolios. So you really want to pick someone that's putting you in a diversified portfolio at a low cost. So another thing we look at is, what funds are they putting you in? Are they putting you in super expensive funds that are really eroding your return? So even asking what their philosophy is, and we don't need to get in the weeds here about specific philosophies.
But I think you're really hitting an important point, which is when you're going to go interview a financial advisor, mm-hmm. you want to ask them, how do you approach this? How often are we going to meet?
Yeah.
Are you going to provide me with kind of a written plan? And again, it's nothing that's set in stone, because as we've talked about in previous episodes, everything is going to change. But are they going to interview you?
Yeah.
I mean, are they going to talk to you about your needs and what your goals are? You know, maybe you say, hey, listen, I want to have three homes across the country. That's a different
Yeah.
plan than somebody who says, I want to start really putting away as much money as I can for retirement. And then I want to set up time. I've got 3 kids. Do I want to put them in a plan, a 529 or a college funding plan, or do I want to hire them? Do I want to hire them in the office as an alternative to that?
Yeah. And that's where the advice falls outside of, it's not just about what funds are you putting me in, right?
That's right.
Or what's your risk profile? How much bonds, how much stocks? It's not just about that. It's about your life goals too. Like you said, it's, hey, we got kids school, we got these goals. We want to retire at a certain age. How are we going to pull money out in retirement? What are the tax implications? And that's where ideally the advisor of today has more of a white glove service, and it's providing a lot of value adding services around just investing your money. So that, similar to what you said in the previous episode, Scott, about, hey, ask your CPA, what am I paying for? Same thing. What are you paying your advisor for? Are you paying this money, but you never meet with them? They never provide you advice. You never hear from them. They just ask you when you want to put in more money. Then maybe we're not paying for the right services
my financial advisor the other day, I called and sent him a note about just getting I needed some extra funds for a vacation that we're going on. I get I'm now at a point I'm taking funds out of my savings and every month, because I'm not working enough to fund our not an extravagant lifestyle, but it's just a moderate lifestyle today. And he said, listen, we need to sit down. I want to talk about some of the, some tax planning stuff and some things that we should be thinking about as we get ready to get towards the end of the year. What we talked about with the CPA. My financial advisor has been doing that for me as well. So it's just, I felt like I'm getting the support that I need from them, for our young, and so that carries on early in your career. So you should start with probably a financial advisor.
Yeah.
Probably, just as you're starting to get a little bit of money.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need
an associate
or
an owner.
Right. You don't need to have 300 grand. I mean, you're going to get a little bit. I had some small accounts for my 3 sons. I moved them over to my financial advisor, who's helping them, and 2 of my 3 have stuck with him. One is kind of thinks he could do it with just the what the internet models are, because he goes, oh, I'm going to save I don't know, whatever it was. It wasn't even a quarter of a point on it. And I said, and as we were talking right before we started this episode, I said, but he's now got 2 kids.
Yeah.
I don't think that computer program is calling him and talking about it or asking him questions. He could probably input it, but I don't know what's coming out of it. And I think that's where, that personal touch to me has been, and I guess I'm old school because there wasn't the newer models of today. I think that personal touch is just crucial.
Yeah.
Because having the ability to email or call somebody and get an answer and get, hey, listen, let's sit down and do this. Or, hey, maybe we should go look at this alternative.
Yeah.
I know in my case, we were like, hey, listen, there's all kinds of things going on. Well, maybe we need to be in a fund that allows us to take advantage of some of the losses. So we can get some more losses during the year.
Yeah.
Even though the fund is going to return it the way that it was being traded. I don't know.
And we talked about this earlier,
It made
Scott,
sense to me.
with AI. A lot of people think they can replace their advisor, their CPA, their dentist maybe with AI, but you got to be careful because it's going to spit out whatever you put into it, and a lot of these responses are pretty canned. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach for everyone's situation. Your investment and financial planning situation is going to be different than your
Everybody
neighbors.
else's. That's exactly right.
You need someone that is going to provide that personalized approach to you.
That's exactly right. And I know it's as I ended my career, we sold to a DSO. I got a really, as I call it, a big check. And my partner, who was in a different situation. She wasn't ready to retire, but she wasn't going to be running the big practice that we had. She got the same check, but we had two completely different goals and needs at that point.
Yeah.
And so having somebody who's going to go look at that. So I think, one, sitting down and talking to this person, what is it that they're going to do for you? How often are we going to meet? What's their goal? How are they going to accomplish that? When are we going to review this? Can you potentially help me if I'm going to set up a 401k for my staff?
Yeah,
and how do we manage that? Or
that one's really important, Scott, because when you start a practice, you're probably going to want a retirement plan. Who runs this retirement plan? It's usually a mix of two people. It's a financial advisor who actually manages the investments within the plan. Then you have what's called a third-party administrator that's actually crunching the numbers in the background to figure out how much does everybody get. We'll focus on the financial advisor today, but that's a really important part of the piece because some doctors come in and they say, well, I don't want a financial advisor running the plan. I'm going to pick the funds and my staff's going to be able to put the money in. There's a lot of risk involved with that. You are taking on the liability that if something happens with the investments, somebody can come out and sue you for not choosing the right investments, not doing some compliance items. So there's also a lot of compliance items that a financial advisor will do for you. They'll manage the investments in the plan. They'll talk to the staff about their options.
And I think this is crucial, is they'll talk to those staff individually, not as one. I mean, again, life changes. My original plan, it was all for one and one for all. And they said, well, I don't think my staff had a choice.
Yeah.
And again, that doesn't exist today. I mean, I don't think you could set up a plan that way, but that was just, we were providing a nice benefit. And I think what it does too is that financial advisor that you have also can become a great advisor to, maybe not as an in-depth way, but to your staff. I know a lot of my staff had savings that they never would have had I not had a 401k plan that was administered and run by somebody who was, and that person would come in and meet with my staff every year or twice a year to go, hey, listen, let's talk about where we're at.
Yeah.
The biggest piece is make sure you don't have a financial advisor that's sending you a daily report. Okay. Financial advisors have no desire.
What would that look like, Scott?
And financial advisors have no desire to talk to you every day. There's just too many fluctuations in the world on a daily basis. But I had a young doctor that got a hold of some money and it inherited some money, put it in a fund, and 2 days later I'm talking to him and he goes, I'm a little bit pissed at my advisor. He goes, it's down. And I just said, okay, you probably should take that money, put it in cash, and put it under your mattress because you're not mentally prepared for what the market does.
Yeah.
And again, I've seen in my career, we've seen 20, 30% drops. Yeah. It's horrible. It's a terrible place. I mean, I don't wish it on anybody, but
no, that's a great point,
there's
Scott.
just fluctuations, and that advisor has got to be there for you as you go through this. And there's a funny story. We were not funny, but we were in. I have a group of good friends. We've been doing golf trips for 35 years. We were actually in our trip to Pebble Beach. We launched on a big one. Most of the time we were going to Myrtle Beach or somewhere local for a weekend. We were in Pebble Beach when the 2008 banking crisis happened. And one of the guys on our trip was a financial advisor, and we just kept saying, "Get off the phone." And he's like, "I can't."
Yeah.
I mean, he's 3 hours. He was up at 3 o'clock in the morning, talking to people 6 o'clock here, trying to. There wasn't much he could say, but he was trying to be a good sounding board to say, "Hang on." It's I don't know where this is going to land, but we got you, and that's what I think you want your advisor.
I was going to ask you that, Scott, because a lot of things we've seen is, and I want to hear your perspective, is have you found value in an advisor stopping you from making a mistake? Because we've seen a lot of people where, market tanked, they pull out all their money, they didn't listen to the advisor to stay in, they pull out all their money, and then they miss the upswing. So sometimes an advisor, like you said, can be a good sounding board to help you not make emotional decisions and stay in the market and stay through the tough parts.
And I think the biggest piece is that person, we've got a great group here now that's helping our clients with their financial, positioning and in how they're doing their financial advisory and so if you've got questions, if you're listening to this and you're kind of getting going, please give them a call. It's just, again, it's just an educational piece that I'm sure they'd love to get on with you. But you have to be willing to ask the questions of what are you looking for. But two, if you don't feel like you're getting that guidance and support and advice, the same for anything else, fire your dentist, fire your CPA, fire your financial advisor. And I did it. I mean, this was a tough one. I mean, it was a friend of mine, still one of my dear friends, but I just felt like he was very busy with probably bigger clients. Mm-hmm. And we still had a fair amount of money with him. And I said, I just felt like he just took his eye off the ball for me. Mm-hmm. And I pulled it from him. And he said, is there anything I can do to change that? And I said, no. And I said, I want us to be friends. If we're not going to be friends over this, then so be it. But I needed to make a decision beyond this friendship piece. I just didn't feel like it. And maybe it was just I don't know if it was just a bad feeling. I don't think he was doing anything wrong. Maybe he wasn't taking it. I wasn't getting the service that I wanted from him and the guidance that I needed.
But that's really common, Scott, is when people start off, when financial advisors start off, they're probably encouraged to contact friends and family. So when we meet with people, it's like, oh, I've had my insurance agent for 25 years, my financial advisor for 30 years. A lot of those things are built off relationships, and sometimes people can't see through that smoke because their financial advisor is their friend or their accountant is their friend. And sometimes you need to be able to separate, okay, they're my friend, but are they helping me make the right business decisions?
And they'll go, today you go, I can call and go, hey, listen, should we be putting money in crypto? And I think I probably did have that conversation. And he probably said, he goes, what do you know about crypto, and are you ready to put your money in it? And I go, I don't know a thing, and hell no. And it doesn't mean it's a sound one, but again, I go back to my father who said, don't invest in things you don't understand.
I love that.
And there's a lot of people have made money in crypto. A lot of people have lost a fortune in crypto. Mm-hmm. I knew a guy that had somebody had given him some of it, and he was tallying. He goes, hey, my coin's up to $40,000. And it couldn't have been a week later. I go, where are you at? He goes, I don't know where that coin is. I mean, it disappeared.
Yeah.
We're talking about a financial advisor who's going to help you make money. There's going to be times they're not going to hit 100% on everything. Their average and their goal and their year over year returns should be good or beating the market. Those are the things you're looking for. You don't want somebody who's like making you 2% when everybody else is getting 8 to 10. Mm-hmm. But I also get leery of people who say, hey, listen, we're going to get you 23% every year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just one of those that's your gambling money. Yeah. If you want to call it that. That's where you're gambling on because that's not the historic norm. Mm-hmm. What it used to be, every 8 years your money would double. And that was based on, I think, probably an 8%
it's
return.
Called the rule of 72. It's like every 7 to 10 years, and we still tell people that your money will double about every 7 to 10 years. But it's not doing anything crazy or sexy.
That's right. You're putting it in. You're putting it in things, and a financial advisor is going to look at your age as well. I'm certainly at 65 years old. I'm going to be in I'm going to be in a little more conservative, but I haven't gone full conservative.
Yeah.
Because I've taken, fortunately, over the last 4 years, a pretty good risk that the market's going to go up, and I've gotten that benefit.
Yeah.
But you've got your stocks and bonds and where you want to be and what risk level you're at, and again, a good financial advisor is going to kind of help you look at all those things. So I think at the end of the day, you're going to hopefully be making some good money in dentistry. You should. If you're not, get good advice on what you're doing wrong with your business. And then just make sure that your financial advisor has been hopefully monitoring these things year over year. And if you interview them, talk to them, make sure that they're giving you the level of service and care that you're looking for.
Agreed, Scott.
Well, good. Well, thanks. It's been another fun episode, and we look forward to the next one.
All right. Until next one.